Speaking of guys that have to perform on a daily basis, the Tennessee's wide receivers will have to do so. Now, Bru McCoy is not going to participate, obviously, because of the injury. I don't know about you, Jimmy, but I just keep hearing what a leader he is. So I know it's kind of trite, and we ask this of injured players from time to time, but what kind of influence can he have on that room because of his leadership? And just to add a little something else, I was just blown away by an autograph signing that he had and the way he treated fans. Just a very, very mature young man.
He is a very mature young man. Now, he had a little bit of a checkered history there at USC, but I think he's grown up a lot. He has been accepted at Tennessee. He's been productive at Tennessee. Best blocker among the receivers. He's a dependable receiver. He's not a guy that's going to many 50-yard passes for you, but I think he does have the leadership skills. I think that room probably could, because I don't know of any other receiver steps to the plate like that. I don't think White. I don't think it's Dante Thornton. No, I don't think it's the two guys that played for Tennessee and Nimrod and Webb. But and then you got the 5-star freshman Matthews coming in. So I think McCoy could be like this group. I think they're going to be good. I think they have a chance to be better than last year, in part because McCoy played 5 games last year. So if you can get 12, 13, 14 games, whatever, out of him, then I think that makes a difference. But I'm very high on McCoy. I think he's got an NFL body. He kind of reminds me a little bit, size-wise, and what he brings to you, to Dwan Jennings.
Yeah, I love that comparison, and they also both wear number 15. Funny enough, Jimmy, one of the intriguing things is that Bru McCoy is one reason I disagree. There's this article written by Chip Patterson yesterday at CBS breaking down the best quarterback wide receiver duos going into college football this year. And he acknowledged Nico, but that Nico was left off the list because they couldn't figure out a receiver to make the duo. But I don't know where you land. I disagree with that because isn't it pretty obvious that if McCoy is healthy, he's going to be the other receiver, or that's going to be the QB receiver duo?
Yeah, I like McCoy. I think now Squirrel White caught 67 passes maybe last year, something in that range. McCoy caught, I think, 52 the year before with Hendon Hooker. I'd be surprised if he doesn't catch well over 2 passes this season. I think he'll be a primary target. Now, I know last year, earlier, nobody told me this, but it looked to me like when Milton was in trouble with his accuracy and they started going to that quick out passing game, that they would throw it to Squirrel because McCoy was the best blocker. So he had many passes because he was out there blocking for his teammates. I don't think you'll see as much of that this year. I think Nico's going to be a more accurate passer. I think it will hit McCoy more or intermediate routes at least, slants, whatever. So I think you'll see McCoy being more part of the passing game than he was in his limited playing time last season.
Elias says, I might regret this, but I'm big on the potential of Thornton this season. We all were big on the potential of Dante Thornton last season, and we saw how that shook out. Eventually, I thought he played well before the injury. Jimmy, could he be Tennessee's comeback player of the year this year?
He could be. And to some respect, he needs to be. He didn't do much of anything the first few games. Now, and I agree with your point. Just when he started to crown, he catches a touchdown pass and gets. So maybe the message there is don't catch any touchdown passes. You can stay healthy. No, he needs to be a good performer for them. In this offense, you really need 3 guys that can perform for you at least. And when Tennessee was at its best a few years ago, a couple of years ago, they had Hyatt. They had that's a pretty darn good threesome right there. So, yeah, Thornton needs to step up, and he can be he's 6'5", and he's got really good speed. He needs to be invested. He needs to, and here's the other thing too. If he wants to play in the NFL, well, now's your time to shine, and I think him.
Point.
So, Jimmy, moving on beyond Bru, looking at the receiving core this year, You just talked about Squirrel White. I would assume he's the main slot guy, but do you see any of the newcomers, Mike Matthews, Chris Brazel? Do you see any of those guys working themselves into the rotation? And do you think spring would be a chance for them to do that?
I do think the spring is a chance to do that. One of the key things for that, the offense is built so much on reading the defense, and you have to be on the same page with the quarterback. I'm pretty confident that Nico's smart enough. He's been in the system. I think job as well. And so I think that they have a chance this spring to work into the rotation. I'd be really surprised, Caleb, if one of those two don't, whether it's Brazil or Matthews. I think one of those two. Now, as you know, the rotation is very, very slim. He doesn't play a lot of receivers. So you got to be in that time, or you may not get a whole lot of playing time. But I would be surprised Brazil or Matthews don't step in and become one of the receivers in the rotation.
That is interesting. You mentioned that, Jimmy. And again, Jimmy's appearance brought to you by each and every Wednesday by Ray Varner, Ford Selection, Best Prices, hometown customer service in Clinton, Tennessee. Worth the drive, no matter where you're coming from. RayVarnerFord.com, RayVarnerFord.com. And Jimmy, at what point do you kind of have to be in the party to make the party? Because you referred to how Tennessee doesn't play a lot of receivers, and they don't. They settle on three, and because of their substitution patterns or lack thereof, they want to stick with those three primarily. And I think they also want to make sure that the reads are correct. So that's their most confident three that they feel are on the field. At what point, if you're Matthews, did you not get into the party? Is that summer? Is that spring where you're like, oh man, I feel like I'm on the outside looking in a little bit?
Well, from the spring to August, that's a lot of time. So for you to get better, to improve, to learn the offense, to study tape and so forth. So I would say if you made that rotation by late August, you're in trouble. But I think until late August, you have a chance to do that. And you've got a couple of scrimmages in which you can do in August. So I think that would be a key for those guys as well. Now, the other avenue is for somebody, which is not what you would want if you're Tennessee, but if you haven't made it, it'd be hard to break in. But we have seen a lot of players that the light bulb comes on at different times. So maybe for Brazil or Matthews, it comes on in game 4 or game 6. And so maybe feel more confident to insert them that time. But I would say if you haven't made that rotation late August after the second scrimmage, you would be in trouble of making the rotation.
Good deal. All right. If you had to predict, last thing, Jimmy, I'm going to let you out of here. If you had to predict who has the biggest spring among the receivers as far as ascension up the depth chart, who would it be?
I'm going to go with Brazil. I think the fact that he has got college experience, he caught 44. I think he's a guy that is more ready to play and to plug and play than Matthews. Now, Matthews may end up having the bigger upside, but I think right off the bat, just the college experience at Brazil, go with him.
I heard both are incredibly mature, so I would offer that up as well. So I think that while most of the time I write off freshmen, I'm not writing those two off based off what I've heard at this